Hello and welcome to this edition of the Airport News Show, a half-hour informational program about the Jacksonville Aviation Authority. My name is Debbie Jones, Community Relations Administrator at the Authority. Our topic today deals with a couple of programs the Authority has in place that will expose students and even give them some experience within the aviation industry. I'd like to introduce my first two guests in this segment, Mr. Tony Cugno, who is the manager of Craig Airport. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
And Mr. Rusty Chandler, who is the manager at Cecil Field.
Thank you, Debbie.
Welcome to both of you. Now, JAAYAA, our program is JAAYAA, which is the Jacksonville Aviation Authority Young Aviators Association.
Correct.
That's the program. And both of you have been involved in it since its inception a few years ago. So can you tell us, how did it come about? What's the purpose of the program?
It came about, the organization had a lot of community outreach initiatives that we did with the community to get young people on the First Coast interested in aviation. They would come to the airport, they would get tours, they would go to various tenants and talk to them about different careers in aviation. And what we realized is there was a strong demand out there for the young people to learn about what are the various careers in aviation other than flying, how do they get involved in it, and kind of establish a network. So what we decided to do as an organization was to create a program that was modeled very similar off a basic college course that ran on semesters and talked about the entire gamut of aviation, everything from flight operations, being a pilot, even military operations, management, air traffic control. And we have, obviously within the airport system, we have those assets with Cecil Field, Craig, Hurlong, and JAAYAA, and they get exposed to the entire system as a whole.
Well, that's wonderful. And both of you have been instructors.
Yes.
And we're beginning another semester pretty soon, but what was it about being an instructor, and what is it about being an instructor that makes you keep coming back?
Well, for myself, I love, teaching. I love instructing, and I love aviation. I've been involved with aviation for almost 30 years now. While I was in the Navy, we were constantly under training, constantly in instruction. I was an instructor for the Navy for 6 years, and I ran the schools there. And since then, I've taught college, and I just wanted to give something back to the community and to the kids. When I was a 10th grader in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I had no idea. And all of a sudden I had an interest in aviation, and then my school communitied with the airport there, Hancock International Airport up in New York, and they offered something very similar where they had professionals come into the high school and actually be guest instructors.
Oh, okay.
So they offered up the program in aviation, and it was very similar to what we do here. They covered everything from what's an airplane, what to do, air transportation, what's an airport, all the way through, and then some of the jobs that were associated with that at the airport. I became interested and then went into the aviation field. And that's what I hope to give back to some of the young adults here in Jacksonville.
What about you, Tony? What got you interested in becoming an instructor?
Very similar to Rusty's background. Obviously, I came from an aviation family. My father was in the Air Force, kind of grew up around airplanes and was just enamored with them as a kid. I guess, you know, your typical American boy, I just thought it was, airplanes were cool, for lack of a better term. And I felt a responsibility and an obligation to give back to the industry that had been so good to me. It had provided me so many opportunities. And I felt obligated to teach kids the things that I knew. And there were so many doors that were opened up for me, for people like Rusty, people within the organization, who really gave me that break and helped me create that network. And I wanted to do the same thing for the young people in the community, because a lot of times people are very interested in a career, but they don't know the path to take. They don't know how to get there. And I think that's the wonderful thing about this program, is it exposes them to the entire gamut of aviation. And at the end of the semester, it's just, they don't go through the program and then they're gone. When they come through the program, they establish that network. They meet people like Rusty, they meet people like ourselves, our executive director, and then we also teach them about various colleges in the area that have aviation programs, and we kind of open that up for them.
So that's, we mentioned that this program is targeted for high school kids, because you mentioned as a 10th grader you weren't sure where to go, and this is a real critical period in those kids' lives as they're making these career choices, and here's an opportunity to expose them to a really dynamic, vital industry that they may not have even thought about before. How do you go about letting those kids know about it?
We do. We advertise in the paper. We have some information on our website. We have a lot of people, a lot of parents call us. Parents will call, or people that are interested in aviation will call and say, hey, do you have a viewing area at your airport? And then you have that avenue that you're already established with them, that you know they have an interest in aviation. So you tell them, say, look, we've already started this particular semester, but we'll have another semester starting up in 2 or 3 months. And would you contact mainly yourself?
Right.
We give them the contact information. We give them the syllabus. They go through a brief application process. They fill everything out, list their interest in aviation, and then we put them on a waiting list. And then when the next semester comes around, we contact those individuals who are interested in participating in the program.
Right, and I know one of the other tactics we used to get the word out was to send the information to those schools that may be magnets within the aviation or military aviation schools.
Correct.
We've gotten a lot of response from that. So let's talk about the curriculum.
Okay.
You mentioned, you just sort of outlined some of the things that the students will be exposed to, and the sessions start in February.
Correct.
February 11th is the next semester starting. So I have here all the sessions. We're not going to go into much detail each one, but they are on Saturday morning.
Every other Saturday.
Every other Saturday morning, beginning February 11th from 9 to 11.
Correct.
So it's not a big time commitment. So their first visit is at Cecil Field, where they're going to talk about airport layout, master plan, and then have a tour. Rusty, can you sort of tell us, since it's at Cecil, what does that mean, airport layout, master plan? What are they going to learn in that 2-hour period?
You know, an airport has always been considered like a small city. Like any other community, any other city, it has to have long-range planning. An airport master plan has 3 periods of time, 5, 10, and 20 years, where it plans what the airport is going to do and how it's going to get there. So they will go over the key components of it. Now, excuse me, again, 2 hours isn't a lot of time, so we really just go in general what it has, go over the topics, what it covers. It also has what's called an ALP, which is an airport layout plan. That's a vital component to the master plan. It shows, it represents the airport itself, what it looks like now, what it's going to look like in the future, the new roads, the new utilities, the surrounding community, noise contours. It's really interesting, and it's something that you'll never get exposed to unless you come to something like this, or you work in the industry.
Right, and noise contours, of course, with all the talk about airports relocating or things like that with recent news, noise contours is something that's been out there, and it will be really interesting for them to learn, where do we get those? Where do they come from? Will they also learn how runways get their numbers?
Yes.
Because I get asked that, and I think I know the answer. I'm giving them an answer that's pretty close, but it's real interesting how they come about getting the runway numbers, and you don't have to say it now,
Well,
so they'll
no,
come
but
to the program.
they're going to get a tour on that day as well of the airport. Every new airport they go to, they will also have time, 30 to 45 minutes where they'll be taken on the airfield. First, showing the taxiway. What's a taxiway?
Right.
What's a runway? What kind of lighting is there? Because there's a myriad of lighting. The different signs on there. How aircraft actually leave a terminal, go to the runway, or if they land, how do they actually get there? They'll also see the buildings, the areas, the different businesses that work there, the control tower, administrative offices, the terminals. We have a couple of small terminals there, and then they'll get to see the land side. So it's just as important. And at each one of those airports, they're going to have a tour and get to see everything.
Right. And Tony, when they come to Craig, the topic there is different types of aircraft types, engines, pilots, operating handbooks. So they're going to get a real basic introduction into flight and different components.
Exactly.
And that's going to happen at Craig.
What we're going to do is we're going to show them, obviously at Craig we have various different types of aircraft that operate. We're going to show them everything from a little 2-seater Cessna 150, and then we're going to take them all the way up to, say, a private corporate jet such as a Lear 45. And the operating environment for those aircraft are very different. We want to show them, you look at, I use the comparison of it's very similar to getting inside of a Volkswagen Beetle and then stepping up to a Ferrari, and you see
Right.
how they handle different. They're extremely complex, but a lot of people never get the opportunity to get this close, to actually go into the cockpit of a multi-million-dollar corporate jet, to talk to those pilots who operate that aircraft, talk to the mechanics who maintain them, actually get to see that aircraft up close, to understand those design characteristics, why some aircraft have a swept wing, why some aircraft have a gull wing,
Right.
to understand why the wing's on top versus the bottom, and there's all different things that they're exposed to.
And as we move forward through the program, they're also going to visit JAAYA, the international airport, and they'll see a different side of the airport, not specific to general aviation, where they'll get to learn some about air cargo and commercial services
Correct.
and security, which is a big deal at commercial airports. And then Hurlong, which is our recreational airport,
Right.
they'll get to visit Hurlong, and it looks like, let's see, what have we got going on at Hurlong? I lost my
It's the
place.
FBOs.
The FBOs, and
Yeah.
what is an FBO?
An FBO is a fixed-based operator.
Okay.
For non-aviation people, I compare it to, it's an airport gas station.
Right.
You can do everything from get fuel to your aircraft, you can get food, you can have your aircraft serviced, you can get maintenance. It's the entire gamut. It's like a little corner gas station they had many years ago,
Right.
but it's for an aircraft.
That's right. And so they'll get to learn what an FBO is and what
Exactly.
it does, and actually see operations going on.
How you fuel an aircraft is very different than how you fuel your car. So they get exposed, as we said earlier, to the entire gamut of aviation, and then at the end, it culminates with a barbecue, and they actually get some time in a full motion simulator. So they get to apply some of the things they've learned
So the simulators provided by
FCCJ at Cecil
Cecil
Field.
in Cecil Field. So that will be the grand culmination, the graduation, something, make it worth getting up in the morning on Saturday to come out. And so once again, the semester will start Saturday, February 11th from 9 to 11 at Cecil Field Administration Building. And for anybody interested, we'll have some information of how they can contact me. But it's a great program, and all the things that they're going to be exposed to.
And also, Debbie, it's free of charge.
Oh,
It's
Yeah,
free of
there's no
charge
point.
to all the
Good
students. They get exposed to things that a lot of people never get exposed to, as Rusty said, unless they work in the industry or they work around aircraft. And it's at no charge to them.
right. And I know that in the application process, and we don't have very many openings left. I think we only have less than 10 openings available, because we want to keep the classes small, because they necessarily need to be small to go into the control tower at Cecil Field and some of the classroom areas around the system. So it's very important that these students are committed to this program, because every other Saturday for 8 Saturdays, that can be quite a commitment, but they're getting a lot for free, and what a great introduction into the industry and possible jobs that are available out there. It was influential with you.
Yeah, I never realized how many jobs were out there.
Right.
You know, when people, you say an airport to people, one of the first things that pop up is airport security.
Right.
Or commercial, you're taking a plane to fly somewhere. People don't realize, or with little aviation experience, that 95% of the aircraft and 95% of the operations are general aviation.
Right.
There's another term. What's general aviation?
Right.
General aviation is anything other than scheduled commercial traffic, or there's other technical terms, passenger traffic. I mean, it covers anything from aerial spraying, police work, recreational flying. It covers a lot.
Right.
So they'll get experience to those terms, that type of aviation,
Right.
plus all the different jobs. There's so many jobs out there in aviation. We really need to communicate that.
Well, what a wonderful program and a great opportunity for high school students. Once again, that's the JAAYAA program, the JAA Young Aviators Association program. You've got the contact information on the screen. And I want to thank my very special guests, Mr. Tony Cugno,
Thank you, Debbie.
Manager Craig Airport, and Rusty Chandler, Manager Cecil Field. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much, and you're doing a great job. I look forward to working with you this semester.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Join us when we come back for our next segment to talk about another program going on at JAA. Hello and welcome back to the Airport News Show. I'm Debbie Jones, Community Relations Administrator at the Jacksonville Aviation Authority. Our topic today is different programs at the Authority that introduce students to the field of aviation, as well as give them some experience actually working within the industry. Our two guests today are Mr. Brian Long, who is the recruiter at JAAYA, and Mr. Jonathan Ward, who is a past intern, just recently completed the internship program. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to talk about the internship program. Last segment we talked about the Young Aviators Association that's geared towards high school students, mostly to give them exposure to career opportunities within the industry and at JAAYA. Brian, you coordinate the internship program at JAAYA. Can you tell us a little bit about why do we have an internship program at JAAYA?
We want to give the opportunity for college students and also for others to be able to have an opportunity to come out and experience the industry which they've chosen to be a part of. So often people will go through 12 years of high school and then 4 years of college and never get a chance to actually work in the industry which they've chosen. And sometimes it's a shock to them. They're not, it's surprising that they think the differences between what they've predicted the world of work to be and the actual realities of that world of work can be sometimes surprising for them.
Right.
So what it does is it gives them an opportunity to be exposed to the actual nuts and bolts of what they want to do, and to also to help them with their resumes. And sometimes to be able to gain that experience and to have something to put on their resume is very, very critical to them.
Right, and I know that the current program we're in is relatively new, although we've had interns at JAAYA for some period of time. How do you get the word out about our internship program and what we have to offer at JAAYA?
Well, we partner with the different universities in our area here in Jacksonville, as well as through our website, which is www.jaaa.aero, and that gives people a chance to see the entire program. If you'll go on the website, and it'll show even the application. You can download that from the website and make application via email through that website, or through your colleges as well too. Right. But another way that we get to put the word out is through word of mouth, through students like Jonathan here who've experienced it and been able to go back and tell their fellow classmates about the internship program and the benefits of it.
Right. Jonathan, how did you find out about this internship program?
I researched on the web, started going over, realizing that the Airport Authority is, aviation in Jacksonville. And through just going through the website, found a contact number for Ms. McDonough, spoke to her, submitted my packet, and waited to hear.
Right.
So, that was my introduction to the airport.
What school are you currently attending?
I'm attending Jacksonville University.
Are you in an aviation program?
I'm studying aviation management.
Okay, so this was very relevant to what you're pursuing as a career.
And it's, I had originally studied pre-law and criminal justice at a school in Buffalo, New York, and coming into the aviation program, as Brian said, having some real-world experience, know the benefits of having something like this internship on your resume.
Right.
That you're not just studying the material, but you're actually putting a practical application to what you're studying in the classroom.
Right, right.
So
a lot of things aren't in the textbook.
Correct.
Not just in aviation, but in anything. And well, so Brian, talk to me a little bit about what types of departments or which departments are involved in the internship program.
All the departments that we have at the Jacksonville Aviation Authority are part of the internship program and are eligible to receive interns from different schools. So we want to make sure that we dispel a common misconception that it's just aviation-related students who could come into it. It's anyone that applies, any students who can relate their courses of study to an area within the Jacksonville Aviation Authority. For example, we have an accounting finance division, which would be more than glad to have interns who are in that field, finance or accounting, to come into it. We have procurement, purchasing areas. We have human resources. We have business development, or a very large part of our our organization
Right.
is geared towards business development, and a lot of opportunities in there. We have a sworn police department who, with limitations, can look for interns to come in as a part of them. So we have a wide world of opportunities for students from different schools, not just the aviation industry.
Right, and they would be doing the finance and the police work just at an airport.
Correct,
But it would
absolutely.
still apply the same concepts and practices.
That is true, that is true.
So the internship, talk a little bit about the logistics. How does a student go about applying? Do the internship programs run according to all the semesters? How long do they take? Those types of details.
Well, annually we have three periods of time that interns can apply. And we've just started, in fact today we had 3 new interns start with us today for what we call the winter semester, which runs from January to March. It's a 12-week program, and it is a paid internship program.
Oh, okay.
And that's a benefit that we've been able to allow to have, students who are working to, get through school and also, needing to have some financial assistance with that.
Right.
It's a minimum wage, which just gives it really a stipend that allows people to be able to have some money to be able to in place for the work that they do.
Right.
And it runs for 12 weeks. You cannot work more than 30 hours per week of those 12 weeks. And at the beginning of the program, we sit down with the assigned mentor from whatever department that the student is going to, and we work out a detailed list of goals and objectives that we want, that the student wants and the mentor wants to be able to evaluate that intern on.
Right, and on that note, Jonathan, the class that you took, did they have requirements as far as what types of projects or tasks or competencies they wanted you to experience during your internship?
Well, I basically approached the university and said, I have this opportunity.
Okay.
And they said, we have a 3 credit hour block which you can fulfill pursuing this opportunity. But in order to get credit, there were certain criteria.
Right.
But the goals and objectives were basically left up to me and to my mentor at the airport. And along with a fellow intern, we kind of developed that program, what we were going to pursue, what was relevant to the operations department, what our mentors were doing out there in the field, and went about it that way. So it wasn't something that was prescribed and set upon us. We were given the latitude to kind of develop our own program.
Right, and I know that's interesting because I had an intern, and to meet the qualifications of his particular course, to get the credits, he had to fulfill certain things. So it's interesting, it can go either way.
That's true.
So go ahead, and I interrupted you. So
That's quite all right.
finish your thought.
But yeah, during the open period to apply, the application period, which the next one would be coming up in the month of March, to be able to apply for the May through July internship. Then whoever was interested, students would go on to the website, download the application, and submit it during that period of time. And it would be evaluated after the closing date, which would be this next one, the end of May. And then those applications would be evaluated, and then the interns would be selected and notified to begin, to begin their period of time.
Okay, and this is not, having been a mentor, this is not a glorified gopher position. I know that when our interns come to us, they've got things to do and things to accomplish. So it's real world work, getting that experience so that when you leave, everybody's confident that you've gained something from the program.
That's true. We want the interns to come in there and leave with a sense of what it's about, of what the aviation industry or what their chosen field is about, and to be able to leave there with a sense that they've accomplished something during that period of time. And that's what part of the goals and objectives, and also the evaluation, the critique that takes place at the end of the program. We look forward to that feedback to be able to make the program better for the next group. Jonathan's feedback has helped us be able to make this new crop of interns to make their time more productive and give them a better experience here.
I guess I should ask you, Jonathan. We're saying, oh, we don't make them glorified gophers, and they really accomplish things. Did you find that true in your experience?
Absolutely. You know, at first walking in, it was kind of like you've heard horror stories. Well, I was an intern, and I became, you know, best friends with the copy machine or the shredder. And that's where I think that the department, like Mr. Jim Ebanks, giving us the latitude with my mentor, Cyrus Callum.
Where were you working?
I was working in the operations department.
Okay.
And there's two sides of the house. There's the air side, of course, which takes care of the airfield and the ramps and the day-to-day operations on the field. And then there's the land side, which, you know, deals with the tenants and the parking garages and
the terminal.
The terminal, anything going on in the terminal, really, they handled. But everybody's kind of like cross-trained, so they can swap back and forth. And going in there, I started working primarily on the air side, you know, because that's kind of like the cool part of the whole.
Big plane.
That's where, like, you know, the meat and potatoes are. And so I worked with Mr. Cyrus Callum and Jim Ebanks. We kind of worked together. Okay, you know, what are you going to accomplish? And like I said, we were given that latitude. And then working on the land side with C.J. Vaughn, it was the same thing. Hey, there's some tasks we need to get done, and I'd like your help on this. But it was never, you know, you need to do this or you need to file these papers. Or there was some paperwork involved. I remember making some photocopies for C.J. and I was locked over at the you know, the JAAYA admin building for probably 6 hours on a Saturday, making these big books. But you know, that's
also part of the job.
That was part of the job.
And that's part of the world of work, right?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
not
It's kind of like, oh, I can't be out there.
That's all a part of it.
But it was great. I mean, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't a hassle, and I enjoyed it, and I really can look back on this experience and look back at the paperwork that, you know, we did do, the accomplishments. There's a list of accomplishments every incoming ops duty officer has to fill out. Which goes everything from working with the Jaguars to preparing the field for an aircraft coming in with a real-world emergency. So being able to handle that, and then towards the end of the internship, having the trust of the ops duty officers that they could set me up on a project and go clear to the other side, you know, constantly in communication, but to the other side of the airport. That meant a lot to me. It said, okay, well, I've got something to take from this. This isn't just, you know, I didn't just do this or come out here.
Well, I can imagine working during Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Oh, that was incredible.
You got a lot of experience in
Right.
Okay, very briefly, because I can't believe we're just about out of time.
Okay.
What was the biggest surprise in one sentence? What would you communicate to other interns?
Well, I think I'll take the last question first.
Okay.
Think about the first one. I would just say to anybody, as Brian and I had discussed, take the opportunity to do this, because when you put that down on paper, I mean, I was able to land a full-time job with an FBO at the airport because I had FaceTime with these people. It was networking. The networking that was involved was great. I'm not from Jacksonville. And I know more Jacksonville, you know, council members and stuff like that because I was at the airport and interacting with them.
So networking was the biggest advantage.
Really.
So, and I hate to cut you off, but we are out of time. We're glad you had a wonderful experience.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
We've got some contact information. If you are interested in the internship program, contact Brian Long. And gentlemen, I want to thank you both. Brian Long, our recruiter at JAAA, and Jonathan Ward. Best of luck to you in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Airport News Show.